Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1. Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Commissioner Brooks is absent today. I would ask that his brother passed away this past week, and I would ask that you keep him and his family in your prayers. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor Andy Mangum from the First Christian of Fort Worth, or Arlington, Texas, I believe. So welcome. Appreciate you being here today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
God of grace and God of glory, on your people pour your power. Free us from the resignation to the evils we deplore, and may we be a people that commits ourselves to the work that you have entrusted to our hands. We thank you for this Court of Commissioners. We thank you for their wisdom and integrity, and pray that you grant them a special sense of your presence as they make decisions today. For the responsibility they have for the most vulnerable, we pray that you grant them compassion, that they would raise the standards for all of us. We pray that you give them the courage to speak where words are needed. We pray that you grant them wisdom as they govern the responsibility over a legal system that calls the mistaken to change their ways. We also pray that they would create systems that hold all of us accountable to being people of compassion and service and peace. As people entrusted with the stewardship of tax dollars, we pray that you enable them to make choices. We know it is not possible to do all that is meritorious to do. Choices must be made and priorities set. So may they set those priorities with the guidance that you provide. We pray all these things in your name and give you all the praise. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, in and indivisible.
Pastor, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you, Judge and members of the court. If it's all right with you, I'd like to close today's meeting in memory of Ms. Ruthie Jackson. She was a deputy mayor pro tem of the city of Grand Prairie, and she has been with the council of the city of Grand Prairie for close to 30 years. And she's a great leader, and she will be certainly missed.
She was an institution, I'll guarantee you, in Grand Prairie. And her, and she was, she recently went off the council, but had the pleasure of seeing her daughter elected to the city council. So
I know you're from Grand Prairie.
I'm from Grand Prairie, grew up there, and knew Ruthie real well, and she was just a a real lady, someone who they'll miss very, very much. So I think that's a great idea, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Also, I want to recognize Councilman Robert Rivera from Arlington. Welcome, sir. Glad to have you with us today. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have two announcements relating to the agenda this morning. Under the Administrator's section, item 8A2, this concerns the hospital district's effective and rollback tax rates. We're going to hold that until after closed session today. And then also, members of the Court, under County Judge and Commissioners, item 8M1, this is the interlocal agreement with the City of Benbrook. We're also going to hold that particular item, but this one will be for 1 week. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Court members, you have before you our minutes of our regular meeting of August the 6th.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. You have before you our consent agenda.
Move for the approval. Go ahead. Second.
We have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Public hearings. come on forward. Good morning.
Good morning.
You might want to tell them who you are. I think they're a little surprised not to see Patricia.
Now, where's Patricia?
Patricia actually had a meeting today, so my name is Tammy McGee. I'm the program manager for the supportive housing program.
Welcome.
Thanks. This is a request. We're requesting that you guys conduct a public hearing to consider amendment number 2 to the program year 2013 action plan. This amendment will entail changing the scope of the use of funds from rapid rehousing activities to homeless prevention activities. Specifically, we would like to use the $53,357 in ESG funds that were originally allocated for rapid rehousing activities and reallocate them for homeless prevention activities. To fill the gap in the needs, the Tarrant County Human Services is going to provide case management and rental assistance to eligible clients in the Emergency Solutions Homelessness Prevention Program. There's no action required at this time.
Okay. At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There being none, then we'll close the public hearing. Do any of the court members have any questions at this time?
We need to take any action today.
No, sir.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming. Welcome.
Thanks.
Mr. Manion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we can go to item number 1. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court provide the following actions. We're going to ask that you receive and file the proposed effective and rollback tax rate information for Tarrant County government, take a vote on a maximum tax proposed at .264 per $100 valuation for tax year 2013, and then also to schedule public hearings for August 27th and September 3rd at 10 o'clock in the Commissioner's courtroom. As you can see in your court communication, it lists the effective, the rollback, the current tax rate, and the proposed tax rate. As of yesterday, and as we went through the budget process, you might remember that our recommendation is that we maintain the current tax rate at .264. So we're requesting that you take those following actions so that we can proceed in the truth and taxation process of policy.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, if we can go to item number 3, we're requesting that the Court receive and file the final report of legislation which was passed during the regular and special sessions of the legislature.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
A motion is second to receive and file. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Just a comment on that. If you have any questions about legislative issues, Mr. Mendez is obviously here today in court, and also anytime you need some information, just give him a call.
Thank you.
Members of the Court, we could go to item number 4. We're requesting that the Court approve an interlocal agreement with Parker County as it relates to the Medical Examiner's Office for forensic lab services.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, I want to talk just very briefly about items 5, 6, 7, and 8. These are requests for interim funding for various programs related to CDBG and actually funding from HUD. All of these have been, you've given them prior funding for this particular grant year. We have been notified by HUD that we have been approved for the funding. We just simply haven't received any of the grants yet. It's to bring to the court. So as you see, this will be an additional step on funding on those. I've already spoken with the county auditor as it relates to this and provided her with necessary emails that verified the HUD's position on this. So we can go to item number 5. Actually, what I just spoke of will occur when we begin with item number 6. If we can go to item number 5, we're asking that the Commissioners Court approve a commercial lease agreement between the hospital district and Larimore Development for the address indicated on your court communication.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so as we start number 6, we're requesting that the court approve an interim financing extension request as it relates to tenant-based leasing with HUD. This is for rental assistance for homeless individuals and families in Tarrant County.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, we could go to item number 7. We're requesting interim financing extension for a grant from HUD. This will relate to the Cornerstone Assistance Network.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, we can go to item number 8. Once again, this is interim financing extension as it relates to a grant from HUD, and this will provide funds for the Samaritan House.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 9, again, this is an interim financing extension for a grant period for a grant from HUD. This relates to Grace.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And then finally, members of the court, on item number 10, we're requesting that the court approve interim financing, and this also is a HUD grant. This is for MHMR.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Tidwell?
We have 2 items we're asking the Commissioners' Court to consider this morning. The first being to receive and file the auditor's report of the exit review of the Tarrant County Justice of the Peace Precinct 2.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And the second item is to receive and file the auditor's report of the County Clerk's Registry of the Court Accounts.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Receive and file. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Tidwell. Mr. Phillips, I assume that since you're walking, you're next, or at least you think you are.
He is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is requested that Commissioners Court approve a construction management contract with Thomas S. Byrne, and I'm also asking the court to approve the Thomas S. Byrne guaranteed maximum price for the new Northeast Courthouse project.
I move for approval. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just to remind everybody, we do have a groundbreaking a week from Friday, the 23rd at 9:30 a.m.,
As long as we all vote unanimously?
as long as we vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
It is requested the Commissioners Court approve change order number 1 to the contract with Sedalco for the demolition of the old Civil Courts building located at 100 North Houston, Fort Worth, Texas.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. That machine is amazing. I mean, the way that thing goes through concrete is just,
And steel.
well, just about anything. I would not want to be in its way when it's deciding it's heading someplace.
Just want $6,000 a day or something. It's amazing.
Kick the dog.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk a little bit, I mean, how did the worker?
Yes, over here at the new Civil Courts building.
Yeah.
This morning, we had an accident on the project. They were attaching some cabling from the tower crane to lift one of the large penthouse-type air conditioning units. They're about as big as a large shipping container. And a cable broke loose and hit a worker in the rib cage, and ambulance carried him off, and he's living. So that was a good thing, and I'll know more probably this afternoon.
Okay. Just kind of keep us posted and let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But that is that the building is looking, or the lack thereof is looking very good. It looks like he's going to be through by the end of this week if maybe the end of next week?
Yes.
Don't worry about it. We're not going to,
Okay, yes. It will be,
breathe easy, Mr. Phillips. It'll be all right.
they'll be down, then they've got to take all the debris. Of course, they're building a road, essentially, Judge, to get closer into the core of the building, because if they can't run the tractor on the top of the concrete on the first floor because it would cave in. So they're actually building a road to get closer in. Then they'll have to, once they take the debris out, they'll have to pull all the debris out of the basement, fill it back up with the proper size rock and recycled concrete, and then place the cistern inside of that. Thank you.
Pretty amazing. Ms. Glenn?
I move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We have 5 additional items. The second item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for Precinct 1. The commissioner is requesting this waiver effective August 17th. The fiscal impact is estimated to be approximately $9,300, excluding fringes, to the Road and Bridge Fund.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third item, we're asking the court to approve a departmental reorg for Precinct 1, effective August 17th. The estimated fiscal impact to the Road and Bridge Fund will be approximately $2,000, excluding fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, we're asking the court to approve a departmental reorg for Human Services. This reorg is being requested effective August 17th. The estimated impact to the general fund will be approximately $11,800, excluding fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
That's a cost saving that much.
Yes. Thank you for the correction.
Second.
Cost savings.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5, we're asking the court to approve a departmental reorg for information technology. IT is requesting this reorg effective October 1st. It will result in the reclass of approximately 45 positions, and assuming that the court approves this item today, then the next step is on to the Job Evaluation Committee. If the court may recall, Commissioner Brooks had some questions regarding this reorg. It's my understanding, and I can certainly be corrected if my understanding is not correct, that Commissioner Brooks did get his questions asked and answered.
You're correct. You're correct.
Good. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our 6th and final item, we're asking the court to approve a departmental reorg for the tax office effective September 1st. Will result in the addition of 4 new positions and the reassignment of 2 positions. We're estimating the fiscal impact to the general fund to be approximately $13,900, excluding fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Come on forward. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Public Health is requesting approval from the court regarding a submission for the Texas Medicaid 1115 Waiver Delivery System Reform Incentive Program, called DSRIP for short. And the program is a falls prevention program, and we'd like to make that submission to Health and Human Services.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Tag teaming us, huh?
I'm going to do the next 2, so at least there'll only be 2 of us. We're also requesting permission to allow 4 people in the Public Health Department to submit contracts in the new DSHS, which is the State Department of State Health Services contract management system. And we'll still bring the contracts to court and they'll be signed, but with the new online system, we need to be able to approve them in that system. And that's what we're asking for this one to do.
Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We also are asking to add 2 credit card accounts to our current credit cards accounts. We have 5 right now. We need 2 more, one for the STD clinic in downtown, at Main Street, and one in the Arlington clinic. This will allow us to collect a little bit more revenue.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Beecham.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
May we talk about this for a moment?
If you'd like.
Just quickly, if we could. It's auction time again. Auction is Saturday. Begins at 9 o'clock at the North Texas Rodeo Association Winnie Ryan Roping Reed in Saginaw. Commissioner Johnson is hosting the event again. Viewing is 9 o'clock until the auction, 8 o'clock until the auction starts on Saturday, or from 10 o'clock till 3:30 Friday. Some items of interest, which should go pretty well. There's a 1997 John Deere skid steer loader, which might be good to take your trash to the curb. 4 Yamaha motorcycles, 2003 Hummer, 2002 Corvette, several trailers, and Mr. Flake had his eye on a 1993 Lincoln Continental. We'll have concessions. It'll probably be warm. Hopefully a large crowd, and love to see you out there if you have the time.
Jack, the judge asked me earlier, they don't allow online bidding that day.
Not for these, no, sir. That's correct.
Okay, but
That's
they
correct.
do handle online bidding sales.
Yes,
when
they do,
make
exactly.
stuff.
In
How
fact,
do
for
they
the largest,
determine what they put online and what they don't put online?
sir,
How do they determine what they put online and what they don't put online?
it's our choice. Through our reduction of assets, we have an online auction with Renee Bates Auctioneers pretty much every week. He's the largest in the country. He's the first to do that. We're quite successful in that. We're the first county, if you remember, to sell livestock. Several of the counties are doing that
I've
now.
heard stories about the taxi cab that pulled up with the goat.
That's true. That's true. We
But he was buying a copier. He didn't buy the goat, I don't think.
How would you know? There's always another story. And the reason I ask that is because I think you met with a group that came in and to talk about the online, and
yes,
they seemed, they seemed to think that the heavy equipment was especially it was something that was very accessible online and brought a lot of pretty good prices online. And I just noticed that we're selling a lot of ours here versus putting it online.
A lot of what we do sell online, when it's closer to disposal to the time of a live auction, we actually do better at our live auction than most folks do online. That's the same information I gave to those gentlemen. We do quite well with that. It's our reputation. It's an excellent location. It's well run. It's easy to get to, and we do make comparisons with online versus live sales, and we do sell some online.
Okay.
We have 4 other items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-100. It's our annual contract for temporary radiology technologists for the health department. Recommendation would be to award on a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-109. This is a new annual contract for mosquito pesticide for outdoor residential recreational areas for the public health department. Recommendation would be to award on a per enterprise basis and a discount from list price, awarding to the primary, secondary, alternate, and alternates 1, 2, and 3.
Are we selling that, or are we giving it to people, or are we actually spraying?
Actually, we'll be purchasing it. It is available to our cooperative members, anybody that's signed up with us interlocally to purchase. We've already had some calls on that.
Can we spray it?
Huh?
Are we spraying it?
Well, we don't spray anything, I don't think.
We'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third item is another bid award recommendation for bid 2013-112, assigning a contract for flexible road-based material. Recommendation be to award on a per-enterprise basis, awarding to the 5 vendors meeting specifications as shown in the communication.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our fourth and last item is an item in regards to bid 2013-097. This was a bid for the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Northwest Entry Masonry Replacement. We are recommending rejection of all bids and asking that we be allowed to rebid with revised specification. We received 2 bids. The budget amount was $100,000. The lowest bid came in at $175,000, or $75,000 above budget. So we're recommending rejection.
Was that, somebody run into that, or what? Why are we replacing that?
Tim Curry, the construction replacement.
Commissioner, it's in the breezeway and the walkway around the Tim Curry building, just on one section on the northwest corner, where you can use it as a test or a pilot. The granite tile is delaminating, and there's movement, vertical movement into the structure. Also, the cast stone that was selected for the material around the edges of the breezeway doesn't accept. What happens, we have folks who take care of business and things at night and weekends on that tile and on that stone, and it doesn't clean up well, and we were going to replace it.
David, what are you going to do on the specifications to change it that you think is going to bring us down in price?
We are going to, right now, we're bidding, purchasing department's bidding to do some special power washing with special chemicals and do some other things we need to do for keep us going another year or so, to replace all of the tile and cast stone with some type of more durable, maintainable material like the polished granite we've been putting on buildings lately. It'll be about $1 million, and I'll have to present that to Commissioner's Court. That's to do all 4 corners, so we would do it all at once.
Maybe we ought to electrify it. That's exactly what I was sitting here thinking. Put a little battery current on there. We get a motion? Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Skinner.
We have one item for your consideration today. We are requesting the court's approval of a local project advance funding agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation related to improvements to East 1st Street. This project is included in the 2006 Transportation Bond Program.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Now, we're holding this next item, so we're going to move on to appointments. Are there any appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manias?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several items to bring to you this morning on the briefing section. The first one concerns a presentation with the Town of Trophy Club as it relates to a TIF number 1. Ms. McMillan is here to address the Court.
Judge, Commissioners, the Town of Trophy Club is proposing the establishment of a 30.5-acre tax increment reinvestment zone located along State Highway 114 at Trophywood Drive to facilitate the development of new retail, office, residential, and hotel uses along that corridor. As proposed through the TERS, funding would pay for approximately $5.4 million in project costs, including roadway, intersection, landscaping, and site improvements, and also economic development incentives and other costs. These improvements and funding are expected to facilitate private development valued at over $46.4 million over the life of the TERS. Today, Mike Sly, the town manager of Trophy Club, and David Pettit with Bennett Benner, and Pettit are here to provide more detail on the specifics of the proposed tax increment and reinvestment zone in Trophy Club.
This is the Whitley edition to Tarrant County.
Thank you, Lisa. I am Mike Sly. I'm the town manager, and before I get started, I'd like to introduce our esteemed mayor, Mayor Connie White from the Trophy Club.
Hi, Mayor. How are you today?
Hi,
She
Mayor.
came to hold my hand this morning.
Ficus just reminded me that this was, I guess, in the area that we added to Tarrant County after a 10-year-long process.
That's exactly
The
right.
Whitley edition.
We are very fortunate to have a small segment of our community located in Tarrant County.
We wished it was more.
So much so that we've identified that particular area as being our first foray into tax increment reinvestment process. We are very excited about the process. We've certainly enjoyed working with Commissioner Ficus and his staff in this process. The creation ordinance is on the agenda for our council to consider next Monday, the 19th, upon which we would hope that we can come back to you and ask for a participation agreement. And what I'd like to do to take you through the details is ask our esteemed consultant, David Pettit, to carry you through the financial analysis and the details of that particular application. So, again, thank you for the time and consideration.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity. I have a brief presentation walking through our analysis and discussion of this first TIF in the town of Trophy Club. The town of Trophy Club, TERS, number one, is approximately 30.5 acres, a relatively small TIF. It's located at the intersection of State Highway 114 and Trophywood Drive. The goal of this TERS is to facilitate the development of the currently vacant land. These are some images of the area. Majority of the land is vacant with the exception of the Hampton Inn and Suites, which opened this year. We do anticipate, if we can get this TIF in place, having some development come online. It includes a couple of hotels, some restaurant pads, a medical office building, and another office building, and 35 residential units, bringing out the total development. As Lisa mentioned, we have projected about $5.4 million worth of improvements, everything from site improvements to public infrastructure to roadway improvements, landscaping, intersection improvements, totaling out the 5.4. We are anticipating that the town of Trophy Club would have 60% of its incremental real property taxes contributed, and 25 cents of the city's available general fund, 1 cent, to the TERS fund. And then we are here asking for 60% to be utilized, and we use 60% in our projections going forward for Tarrant County. We did a taxable value analysis, examined the potential development and the anticipated revenues to the TERS. And as Lisa had mentioned, we anticipate about $46.4 million coming online in this TIF over 20 years, and about $11.7 million worth of taxable sales coming online. This has a tremendous economic impact, generates over $33 million, with 5.4 going into the TIF, 744,000 of that coming from sales tax. And if you can see that second image, it can show the breakdown of about 3.8 and about 1.5 coming from Tarrant County. Our next steps are a public hearing, as Mike Sly mentioned, in town consideration on Monday the 19th, board consideration of the project and financing plan, approval of that plan, and then coming back to you guys for consideration of the agreement. And then we would work with the appropriate developers as they come forward with projects that are consistent with the project and financing plan. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Any question? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lisa?
As David pointed out, the city is proposing their contribution to be 60% plus the 25% of the 1 cent sales tax into the TIF fund, estimated to be about $3.8 million. They are requesting the county to participate only, not the hospital district, also at 60%. Our contribution would total about $1.5 million over the 20-year life of the TERS. If it is a consensus of the court, we will move forward with working with the Town and Trophy Club to appoint a board member, start working on the approvals of the project and financing plan, and then come back to you with a participation agreement at a later date. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Members of the court, if we can go to item B. This is a bond-related financial update. Mr. Medinich is going to be addressing the court. However, let me introduce it just a minute. You might remember about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were discussing with the court as it relates to the transportation-related issues. If we wanted to sell 1 year or 2 years worth of debt. And at that time, you requested that we ask our financial advisors to come forward and talk to us and give us a recommendation as it relates to just selling 1 year worth of debt or 2 years worth of debt. And that's what this discussion is going to be about today. Mr. Medinich will be talking about that, plus market conditions and things such as that. So, David?
Morning, David.
Good morning.
Good morning.
GK, is it up on the, are we just on the? Okay.
GK, while we're passing that stuff, the last time we had transportation and audit to discuss where we were on the projects, there was a little differences, or we weren't quite sure we were on the same page. Have we got that reconciled, and could we possibly get that presentation in the next week or so?
Yeah, we'll have that. Plus, we're waiting to close out one large project also in Precinct 3, and we were hoping that that project would be closed by now, which would actually talk a little bit more about some different revenues. Yes, we'll have that for you next week, within the next 2 weeks.
City manager told me this morning that he was on top of that. Now, I'm not sure
What that means?
what that,
Okay.
does that mean the next day or two or the next month? So,
We'll need to ask the city manager.
you were working on that.
Well, I had talked with the city manager about that, and basically he said they were going to expedite that issue.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that they're attempting to expedite that issue.
North Carolina. Okay. Thank
GK, I'm sure it's probably me, so. It is normally me, by the way.
So is this Duff's, I guess this is obviously Duff's emails that we're seeing up here?
Oh, well, that's.
Yeah, just not.
Technology at its best.
It's not up there.
Okay. We can just go.
You got it. You have
Yes,
it.
I do.
Okay, great.
Well, let's on the book, what GK asked us to do is a couple of things, is to give you an idea of kind of what the market's doing, what it has been doing, and what we anticipate it might be doing. I may not comment too much on what it might be doing, but then also to go through what the effect of the $40 million is. And if you look at the first slide, it's the MMD, it's the municipal market, it's a benchmark, in essence, index that we go by. And what this represents, the red line, the bottom line, of course, is it's the yield curve, shows where the interest rate's at on the yield curve, and then on the left is the yields themselves. And the red line at the bottom, as you can see, that's as of May 15th. And as of last week, August the 6th, you can see what the difference is in the rates, how much we've lost or how much the interest rates have increased over that time period. For example, on the 5-year bond, it's about 52 basis points, 100 basis points, and 1%. And then you get all the way out to the 20-year, and it's 1.32%. And you get out to 30 years, it's 1.3%. So you can see in the last few months, the market is really, as far as interest rates are concerned, have started moving up. And then if you go to the next slide,
It's a similar thing, except for it's the MMD going back to 1993. As you can see, we've had a great ride. It's gone from almost 7%, and it dropped down to the low. I think that was probably around that May time period of about 2.5%. And now, as you can see on the far right, the market's starting to climb up again. It's not starting to; it's climbing up again. The forecast, depending upon which economist you talk to, I got a little reading this morning, and from 72 economists, they're anticipating the rates to continue on each quarter for the next 4 quarters. It's the same 72 economists that 6 months ago showed a little bit flatter than it is right now. But given the information that we've seen and given what's even the market today, I was told it's already kind of moving in the other direction, or the interest rates are climbing as well. So we're still in a very favorable interest rate environment. The county, pursuant to the ratings that you guys have and your presence in the market, are going to get an extremely good price for your bonds if you choose to move forward. And as you can see, I mean, the rates have gone up, but they're still very favorable. And then if you'd like to turn to tab number 2, tab 2 is what GK just made mention of, is the $40 million of bonds. And as you can see in the left column, that's the projected assessed value. We think the growth percentages are fairly conservative at 3.2% in 2014, 2% thereafter to about 2019, and then we have no growth after that. In the box, the first column is the debt service on the $40 million, and it's over 20 years. The second column is a proposed refunding. It's refunding approximately $37 million worth of existing debt. The rates on that debt ranges from 4 to 5%, and so when you're refunding it with 2.7% interest rates, that's for what that time period is. You can see where the savings comes in. So that's a savings of about $3 million, or right at $300,000 a year. And as you can see, it's over the same time period. It's just purely for savings. We're not extending the debt, anything like that. And then finally, when you look at the far right column, as GK stated, the approved the approved tax rate on the debt is 0.0272. And then as you can see, if you add on the $40 million with all these assumptions, the tax rates stay either at this or start declining because your debt starts declining over time. Your debt structure is very, very favorable. If you choose to move forward with this, the plan is to price the bonds on around September the 9th with the award on September the 10th. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, court members?
In
For
the
1 or 2 years?
in the proposed budget that we submitted yesterday, we anticipated, and we were funding a 2-year sale. In other words, sell for 2 years the $40 million plus the refunding.
And we've already sold everything we need for the civil courts building.
Yes.
Okay, so, and that's why I would like to see that reconcilement. If we can see that next week,
sure,
then, that will give us a more up-to-date view of exactly where we are and what we expect over the next 2 years.
Okay, very good. We'll do that. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
You got it. Right there it is. Okay, members of the court, if we could go to item D, which is an update on the cyclospiralis.
Here we got their attention.
Which was pronounced properly this morning.
Congratulations.
That's all right. They didn't get that on tape.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just want to give you a quick update on cyclosporiasis here and what's going on in the national multi-state outbreak. As of yesterday, the CDC is reporting 539 cases nationwide, and that's in 19 states. We've been talking about Iowa, and they're still at 153. Texas, as of yesterday at the CDC, was 215. So Texas tends to have more cases. Within Texas, we have 41 of that here in Tarrant County. Nationally, there's been 32 hospitalizations. In Tarrant County, we've had at least 2. Last week when I was here, I reported on 34 cases. We're up to 41. The actual number of cases we haven't had an onset after July 17th, and that's been that way for about 10 days now. So the cases we received last week, of those we've been able to interview, we've got 3 more to go, have not had an onset after the 17th. Elsewhere in Texas, there have been some other counties that are starting to see cases. The State Health Department reported they're investigating 2 facility clusters, people who ate at the same place, that may focus the investigation more. The FDA reported to us yesterday on the national call they have their environmental team on site at the distributor and at the farm in Mexico that they had identified in their traceback that's been in the media. And that particular group has stopped all import into the United States for their leafy greens. And so we're hopeful that that'll cut back on cases here forward. That doesn't mean it's the only place, so it's still being looked at.
Was it stopped last week?
Beg your pardon?
Was it done last week?
I believe it was stopped last week, but I don't have an exact date. I know as of yesterday they said it had been stopped. So, and that's basically it. We're still clustering, our onset dates still cluster that first full week of July. And that's about 10 to 12 days later than the Iowa and Nebraska cases. So we may be a little different for whatever reason.
What kind of length of, on this, when someone ends up with about how long are we talking about that they could end up?
Some people will resolve in just a few days, but those who get it, it'll come and go for weeks. And theoretically, or not theoretically, it is self-limiting eventually, but you can lose 15, 20 pounds doing it. And it's very unpleasant. You lose your appetite. So if they get into a physician, and usually what happens with adults, and our median age is 48. I forgot to bring up it's 10 to 72, I believe. 76 is our age range. But our median age is 48. And with adults, they get sick, they don't go to the doctor immediately with a diarrheal illness. And so then they keep getting sick, then they finally go to the doctor. And if the doctor, there's other things to look at. There's a lot of things that cause diarrhea. May send them back with something else that doesn't take care of it. Then finally it gets tested. We're talking to people 3 to 4 weeks after their exposure time to find out what they ate, which is part of the difficulties. I have a hard enough time remembering what I ate yesterday, much less a month ago. So it takes a while to get the cases.
And you're not even 75.
No.
It's a magic number there.
Good cake.
Yeah.
You're on TV.
What you've described is, I've got a friend of mine who's gone through this and almost identical, and originally they did not look at it. It's taken a pretty tough toll on him from that.
Has he gone to his doctor yet?
He did. He was released from the hospital once. He got ill again. He went back to his internal and his urologist, and I don't know that they ultimately decided that this was what he had, but everything that you've described is something that he was experiencing.
So hope he gets better.
Well, he's out of the hospital again, let me just say that. So hopefully he is getting better now, I think.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
questions, court members?
No.
All right, thank you.
Members of the court, if we could go to item D. This is an update on the West Nile virus. Dr. Curian is here to address the court at this time.
Guy's got all kinds of good stories today for us.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Last week, we had tested 169 mosquito samples at our public health lab, 3 of which tested positive for West Nile. All 3 of these samples were from the city of Grapevine. So to date, this season, we've had 9 West Nile virus positive mosquito samples, 6 from the city of Grapevine, 1 from town of Pantego, 1 from White Settlement, and 1 from the Tarrant County part of Grand Prairie. Just want to point out that since majority of the Grand Prairie, city of Grand Prairie is in Dallas County, they participate in the Dallas County Health and Human Services Mosquito Surveillance Program, which means that all the specimen collection, testing, and making recommendations are done by the Dallas County Health and Human Services, and we get a courtesy notification of these actions. In response to the 3 positive West Nile virus samples from city of Grapevine, ground spraying was completed by the city as per the public health recommendation on August 8th. Other cities besides Grapevine who've completed ground spraying thus far this season is town of Pantego, White Settlement, Richland Hills, Hearst, and Euless. Now, in response to increasing QLEX densities in the unincorporated area, one additional location was ground sprayed over the weekend. This location was in Precinct 4. So thus far this season, we've completed ground spraying in 8 locations in the unincorporated area, which is under our jurisdiction. 2 of these locations are in Precinct 1, 3 in Precinct 3, and 3 in Precinct 4, none in Precinct 2. As far as the human cases go, we continue to have 1 human case this season, which was from the city of Fort Worth, reported way earlier in the season on June 13th. So in comparison, by this time last year, we've had 152 human cases and 84 West Nile virus positive mosquito samples. So this season seems to be a much...
So 84 versus 9 on the positive, and 1 human case versus 150?
52.
152.
Mm-hmm.
You might remember, we also have a lot more traps out there this year than we did last year. So we're capturing more mosquitoes.
If I recall last year, you had told us that there was approximately maybe a 3-week time period from the time that person might have been
sick,
bitten, and when they actually went to the doctor, got the results back. So we had a tremendous number of cases that hit the latter part of August, which meant those people were being bit like right now, a year ago right now.
That's true.
The first 10, 15 days of August. So you don't anticipate that happening this year?
It's like everything else. It's
Head
unpredictable.
showing,
Yeah, exactly. So we are still on guard. We are still not, considering that the season is over. So.
And considering that we've had a lot fewer positive tests, you would have to think that that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I really want to applaud everybody and the help that even that the court members also put into this, and I think being much more proactive at the beginning of the year, and I think we've seen the benefits from that. And I've had a number of the folks from the different cities, comment to me that they seem to, be very grateful for the way we've collaborated with that. And I know y'all have all worked well with your cities in this area. So
I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you too. I mean, it couldn't have been possible without your support. You did support our program, provide us with the resources to do a good job. So.
Public health doing a really good job this year.
Absolutely.
And last year I was a bit critical, but in the sake of fairness, I want to let you know that I'm very pleased with your proactivity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Statewide, I just want to end by giving you a statewide picture. Statewide, we have 108 West Nile virus positive samples from 8 counties, 9 human cases, 1 viremic donors, and fortunately no deaths. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Amazing difference a year makes, and I think, again, I think just about all over the state, we've been much more proactive.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of court, if we could go to item C, which is the FY14 budget issues. You might recall yesterday we discussed with HR about the law enforcement salary issues. Ms. Worthy is going to give you some information this morning as it relates to that.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, because he dropped it the last time you let him handle it.
We shouldn't be critical during budgets. Not you. He wasn't the one who pointed that out.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So you might recall last week, those of you that were here, that we presented 2 different scales to the court. We presented one that was actually presented by Hay, And then we presented a second one that was presented by Human Resources. As you recall, there was some confusion last week, so we're here this week to straighten that out and to present you with this recommendation that I just handed out to you. This recommendation is supported by all parties involved. We did review this with the members of the Law Enforcement Committee. They are all recommending this, so here's the scale that we're presenting to you. I'm going to refer to this for sake of ease as the revised Hay scale. This is a slightly different version of the scale that Hay presented last week. It's very similar to that with the exception of a couple of different dollar values. And we decreased a couple of the steps, 1 to 7 cents per step. The reason we did that is that the Hay scale brings into effect some leapfrogging. So what we did in order to correct that was to drop a couple of the steps a few cents. What that did was, in order to accommodate the fix for the leapfrogging, it made it within budget. So we've got our budget number, we've met that number. So moving forward, when we map employees to this scale, there will be no leapfrogging and there will be no employee pay decreases. That was a concern last week. We've straightened out that issue. That was a non-issue. So there will be none of that, as I mentioned. What it doesn't do is address the step reductions. You'll recall we talked about that last week. So if you recall, employees will be mapped to their new step on October 1st. The step after that for some employees will actually be lower than the step they would receive on the current scale. Now, that's something we talked about a little bit last week. Again, all parties have reviewed this and are moving forward with this recommendation. So that's the con to this scale. The pros to this scale, generally speaking, the minimums are at P25 for the majority of our employees. The steps really 51 through 55 are at P25, so that gets the minimums to that level, to that goal. This does fix the leapfrogging issue, as I mentioned, and it does establish a consistent 3% increase between all steps. So that is the scale we're presenting. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Good job. Keep up the good work. And it's my understanding now that Bobby's group has concurred in this.
Now, the 3% increase, that's through all steps for grades 49 through 55?
All steps through 60.
All the steps through, and then all the grades through 60?
Correct.
Okay, 3% increase.
Let me make sure I'm answering the right question. Between the steps, so between A and B for all grades, it's a 3% increase. It's not between 49 and 50, for example. It's between A and B, B and C.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, within each step, between steps, it's 3. Within each grade, between each step, it is 3%.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
Now, to that end, do we need to make any kind of a motion with regards to this? Or is this just, you're saying that this fits within the budget that we discussed and approved yesterday?
Yeah, I would suggest that because we are doing, and this is part of an agenda item that we carried over from yesterday, if we could get a motion to approve this as a law enforcement step.
Move. Second.
We have a motion and a second
Effective October 1st. We're going to come back.
to approve this as in our budget, and that would be as of October 1st?
Correct. Yes. Correct.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Question. What about the other items?
We're not ready to present those at this time.
But we'll talk about it later?
Yes, what we will do is carry this agenda item over each Tuesday, and the Budget Department will be coming back with recommendations on those other issues.
Okay.
So, and that's a process that we've always done. So, and it's going to come to conclusion on September 10th, whenever we are actually looking for on September 10th, we're going to approve the budget and approve the tax rate.
I was referring to the bilingual pay and education pay and so forth. Are we going to talk about that, or is?
I don't think we're going to talk about that today, Commissioner.
Okay.
We will now recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551.07 Closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Okay. Item 2, under the administrator section. Let me catch my breath, I ran. JPS had a calculation error we discovered this morning, and to maintain their current tax rate, we'll need to call public hearings. Wish I could catch my breath. So, which their current, the effective rate is slightly under their current tax rate. The effective tax rate should be 0.227527. The rollback rate is okay. So it would be requested that the court receive and file those proposed effective and rollback rates, the proposed rate being their current rate, at 0.227897, and call public hearings on August 27th and September 3rd at 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's courtroom. I was just on the phone with their Vice President of Finance. I got hung up on her. They talked about the possibility of lowering it, but I told her it was better from y'all's perspective. You need to propose the highest rate, then back off on it. Otherwise, under truth and taxation, you would have to start over. Calling public hearings, doing publications, and so forth. So that's... This is the safest way to go about it. Yes, because we're in a time crunch issue at this point in time.
Okay.
But they had a wrong number in their calculation.
So you want us to receive and file?
Receive and file, the rollback, effective, and proposed tax rates.
And 2 public hearings on
Call the 2 periods.
August 27th and September 3rd.
Yes. I will actually modify the court communication and email it to y'all later. That's
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes almost unanimously. Unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all we have.
There being no further business, we will adjourn and remember in memory of Ruthie Jackson.
How old was Ruthie?